I am on the road to Lethbridge, and I was doing a little bit of vlogging, and it kind of inspired me to speak about this subject of what makes home home, because it's something that came up a couple months ago with a friend visiting Calgary, and I just started talking about how going to Lethbridge right now is weird because Calgary doesn't feel like home, Lethbridge isn't home anymore, feeling displaced still, despite how many months I've been gone now. How many months has it? Like 8 months? More than that? No. I gotta do some quick math. Yeah, like 8 or 9 months that I've lived in Calgary. Anyway, just thought this would be a good time to approach that subject and do some external processing about it. So, here we are. Home. What makes home home for me? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out. So, yeah, a couple months ago, I had a good friend visit Calgary, which isn't like something that was infrequent, I guess, for him, just because he's got family there. But, yeah, it was the first time since I had moved from Lethbridge to Calgary that I'd had him come visit there. And I haven't been to Saskatoon in a while, and he was living in Saskatoon at the time, but no longer. But yeah, I think this is just like, there's this thing where I haven't had friends in the same city or consistent friends that I can like see in person for so long. For like 8-9 years, I've had some friends there, some newer friends that I've made closer to the end of me leaving, and others that I didn't have the capacity or they didn't have the ability to like meet up in person very often. And it's just different, like friends that I've had for years and years, you know, we all went our separate ways at one point or another, but far enough that it'd be challenging to see them. So, and this is a lead into just, yeah, what makes home home. I think like, I keep up with my friends a lot through voice notes and phone calls, like weekly check-in videos and stuff. And some of that was initiated by other parties in that friend group. And yeah, some of it's just been going on for like a decade of just like phone calls a couple times a week or whatever. But I don't have any like consistent hangouts. Like in Calgary, I don't have anybody there that I'm hanging out with. And while I was living in Lethbridge for so many years, like 8-9 years, I also just, yeah, I had left Saskatoon and left some people behind there, and some people had moved away from Saskatoon before I even left. But I was kind of talking to my friend Jordan, who was visiting from Saskatoon in Calgary a couple months back, about this topic a little bit, because I was like, yeah, I don't know, like it doesn't feel like home yet. And I was saying that one of the things, other than this, like, 'cause I think this is its own part of that, is having friends to visit with in person. Like having community can be, you can have community or feel community in a lot of different ways, but for me, I don't like meeting new people very much. There's just a lot of stress and pressure and anxiety and concern, I guess. But it's just uncomfortable, and it's not something that I enjoy doing. Like I have a very small core group of friends that are really strong, and I like that. And I would hang out with those people, you know, every week if I could. And I would make that a priority because I feel like I get a lot out of those friendships because they are built on like one really core value, which is, well, maybe two, but they're really similar to me, or adjacent or parallel. They're connected. That's a better word for it, is know thyself and personal growth, lifelong learning, whatever you'd want to call it, growth mindset. Like those are the things that are really important to me for anybody that I want to have in my life. And if that person is in my life due to my choice, and it's not like a coworker or boss or something, and I'm choosing to spend time with these people in person or not, but giving my time and energy to them through just voice notes and phone calls or whatever. I want to surround myself with people that are of similar attitude so that I can be challenged by them, by just them being great leaders and great examples, leading by example, but also challenged. Like I've talked before about like relationships for me, personal relationships are really built on challenge. The ability to challenge the other and the other being able to challenge me, feeling that they can challenge me as well. I need that. Like I just feel like I need someone to call me out on something or to have conversations with me about things that are difficult. Because to me, that's what friendship is. That's what care is being able to have those difficult discussions. And I think that it is different having that in person frequently versus, or just at all, versus doing it from a distance. And I mean, one of my good friends lives in Japan. I mean, he's lived in the States, he's lived in Japan for so long. I haven't seen him for 20 years almost. I think 2006, or maybe it was 2008. I think it was 2006 was the last time that I saw him in Saskatoon, and then he moved. Yeah, I can't think. No, I saw him maybe 2008 or 9. I think. Either way, let's say 15 to 17 years ago, and we talk frequently via voice notes, and it's just different. I don't know. That's what I have available to me, and that is a great tool to keep up with friends. But there is something different about it versus seeing those people in person. It's just a different connection. Because, I mean, a lot of people, and this is different because a physical element of a lot of romantic relationships. Not every romantic relationship has a physical intimacy as part of that relationship. But I think a lot of people will be like, oh, I don't want to do a long distance relationship. And it's like, yeah, but with friendship for me too, it's challenging because I want to see those people in person. I want to hang out and just have that different energy that they can bring and that I can bring, and just like real-time conversation in person. Real-time conversation over the phone is another step, and then you've got something like voice notes, which is even one more step removed. But again, I'm glad that technology exists and that we utilize it. But I think that is one thing that keeps me from not feeling like home. However, friendship and family, if I lump those two things together, not having that in my physical presence and city is part of what is hard and challenging and difficult for me to feel like it's home. So that's one barrier that I have. And I've had that in Lethbridge for a long time. However, it took me a while to settle into Lethbridge and make it feel like home. I was there, forget that sentence. But I had often said that, it started to feel like home for me once I started mountain biking and once I got the studio, and both of those things happened relatively, like within the same year. And those things made me feel like I had, one, a connection with my city, with mountain biking, because I didn't have that for a while in Lethbridge. I'm like, how am I connected to the city? Because in Saskatoon, when I was doing graffiti, when I had first moved there in like 2004 and was doing that for a couple of years, that was how I had a relationship with my city. And I had I had a lot of exposure to Saskatoon for years prior because I was there multiple times a week, but I wasn't living there. But I was present and in the city, but I just didn't have a relationship with my city. And I think having a relationship with my city is partly what makes it feel like home. Mountain biking in Lethbridge was eventually how I had a relationship with my city. And, again, relating that back to graffiti in Saskatoon, I was like walking all these different areas and getting to know the physical space, the geography of my city, and, just noticing certain things that other people might not notice, and being in places where other people might not be, and then other places where a lot of people were. But I was like, I had intimate knowledge of a lot of areas of the city that other people did not. And I also just roamed the city with purpose. And I also just walked everywhere, not even just with graffiti, but I just walked a lot for a long time. Being in university was another part of that. Working was another part of that. And having those different places for community. Some people talk about third spaces, and like at the I spent a lot of time at university, and I liked the energy of it. There's thousands and thousands of people there, and like all for a similar purpose to a degree, and that felt nice, even when I wasn't connecting with a lot of people there in a way that I could cultivate friendships. It was still nice to have that community, and that'll come back in. But mountain biking was that in Lethbridge, getting out in nature, feeling that within the city, because in Saskatoon, it was a different vibe. And I was, doing a little bit of biking, BMXing within the city, but no mountain biking and getting out in nature and that stuff. And yeah, I really got to appreciate nature just through mountain biking and appreciating nature because of what Lethbridge has to offer in that regard. I also mentioned the studio, and when I got the studio, I felt like that really contributed to me feeling like Lethbridge was home. And part of that also was like having this in the downtown, core of Lethbridge, which is not much of a downtown. It's a really small city with a really small downtown. But I was there in the thick of it, and just if I had studio days, I'd be out and about. I'd maybe walk to the bookstore, or maybe a couple bookstores, maybe grab lunch, run some errands, whatever. Like I would just be out and about downtown, and the studio was there and had great views. And I was, again, intention and purpose with my presence, and doing the work that I was doing there. And that felt like home. It felt like, oh, I am here. This is a space. And I think that this leads into part of what I like, the conversation that I had with Jordan about, like, Calgary doesn't feel like home yet. And I think part of that is like, well, in Lethbridge, I felt amongst certain communities or people, businesses, whatever, I was known. I was a regular. I was acknowledged, a patron of certain businesses that I really enjoyed supporting, and they knew me. And that's like a cool thing about small towns sometimes. It's not really my bag because it comes with a lot of other stuff. I like that part. I like when I get to choose. Like, oh, I like this store. I like this shopkeep, this merchant, this business owner. I want to cultivate a good relationship, working relationship, like customer-merchant relationship, and frequent this place and have conversations and whatever else. And I make that choice versus what comes along with those small town vibes is sometimes people just talk to you and they talk to you and they talk to you. And this could happen anywhere, just like friendly people in a city that just talk to you at a bus stop. And I got my headphones on because I'm waiting for the bus and I don't want to meet new people. As I've mentioned, it's not something that I like to do really. It's why I have a hard time with things like marketing myself as an artist and meeting up and going to exhibitions and showings and galleries and networking. It's really challenging for me. One-on-one is fine because I like to cut to real conversation. I don't like small talk. And when you've got, the small town vibes of people just like wanting to small talk you and thinking that, I don't know, like it's not friendly to me when someone imposes themselves upon you for their own purposes because they want to call it friendly versus they don't, whatever. I'm sure there's a lot of different reasons, but it takes me a long time to warm up to to that, I guess, because it's I want it to be my choice of who I'm interacting with. So anyway, I think that it's the literal sense of being known, of people know who I am, and I don't mean in some weird way that like people know me. Like, it's not about importance or feeling like that gives me value. That's a question, but it's more the sense of I exist because people recognize I exist. Well, why did graffiti help me? You know, art, we're talking about legacy and anxiety over mortality, right? And it's like leaving a mark, having work live on through my words, through the impression that I can give to people, through inspiration and conversation that could create change, which is what teaching was for me. And what friendship can be for me, and having those conversations with people that are meaningful conversations. So with this idea of being known, it goes into this whole thing of like feeling like home, right? Like, I mean, I have anxiety over death and mortality, and I don't know how to shake that or accept that yet. And I think that plays a role into why I need a place to feel like home, or why I would want that, and not being so insular, because I feel as though I am fairly introverted, other than like I love being social with the people I want to be social with, but I'm not traditionally extroverted in the sense that, yeah, I love meeting new people, and I've got a lot of energy and I'm a social butterfly. Like, I love being social with those I choose to be around because I enjoy their company. I don't enjoy the process of meeting new people to figure out if I enjoy their company or not, because the majority of people I don't enjoy. So, but having this thing of like, oh, I'm a regular at this spot, or I'm in the community kind of volunteering my time to do this thing or that thing, and meeting people through that process, I don't have that in Calgary. There are places that I go, and there are a few people who know me there, but I don't frequent those places a lot. Part of it is financial, part of it is time and distance and schedule and whatever. I'm not, like, I'd have to go out of my way. I'd have to really, like, oh, I'm going to go to this bookstore, and this gentleman there knows me, and that's awesome. But, and then we can have some good conversation while I'm there, and it's cool, and I like that. But I don't frequent it enough that if I wasn't there for a couple months, it would be like noticed. Versus when I was downtown in Lethbridge all the time, and it's like, man, John hasn't been in for a while. That's weird. And I don't know what this thing is, and this is the part where I'm like, I don't know what that is, like being known or recognized, or because again, it's not about notoriety. It's not about any semblance of fame or importance in that aspect. It's more of like, oh, my existence is validated by a lot of things that I do, and they don't have to be validated by other people. But I think that plays a role in a sense, like if the whole thing of like the bear in the woods, or if a tree falls down in the woods and no one's there to hear it, whatever, it doesn't happen. So I might be getting my analogies mixed up right now, but I think that, like, yeah, if no one knew that I existed because I just didn't, do anything worthwhile, and I wasn't around, and no one just even acknowledged that I existed because I wasn't out and about, it would feel weird. And so I think that plays a role in something feeling like home for me as well, is like having this sense of community with being a regular, and having, I don't know, because it's a step away from like a friend. Like, this isn't like a friendship. It's having acquaintances in this very specific compartmentalized group that I don't have right now, that can also make a place feel more like home and comforting and community. I don't have that right now either. I also just think that it's just like not knowing a lot of people. I think that's what it comes down to. Is like I don't know a lot of people there. There are people that I know of, but I don't know them. Like there's people I'm like, oh, this person lives in Calgary, this person lives in Calgary, but I don't talk to them. I don't really know them. I know them secondhand. I've seen them maybe a time or two through someone else, but I don't know them. And I am a very social creature, and I've adapted to not having that because in Lethbridge for so long, I didn't have that consistently. That yes, I got used to it, but it's not, I got used to it, and this is where I get like just with words like, I got used to it, but I didn't accept it. Like, I know that I need that in order for me to be more healthy as just like a social being and as a person. And I just didn't have that in Lethbridge. Again, I didn't have that consistently for such a long time out of the 8-9 years that I lived there. The majority of that time, I didn't have that friendship and community in that aspect. I had this acquaintanceship community that built over time that definitely helped. And I think it's just harder to create in Calgary that acquaintanceship through regular exposure to things. Like, I don't know, for an example, I've been going to the gym for I don't know how many months, like 5 to 6 days a week. And I see the same faces at the same time a lot. I don't talk to any of those people. And this is part of it is like, again, like, hey, well, I like when those things happen naturally because I have a hard time going out of my way to just talk to people and be like, hey, like, why? You know what I mean? Like, someone might approach someone because they have an interest in them, and the only thing they know about them really is their physicality and how they look and their aesthetics, and maybe the way they move in the circumstance can tell them something with the way they carry themselves, but maybe not. Maybe they don't get anything about them. They're just approaching them based off looks because they have an interest in getting to know them for other purposes that are not platonic. So that I can understand to a degree, but that's not what I'm looking for right now anyway. So, and I'm not looking for friends. That's the other thing. It's like this odd place to be where I'm like, yeah, that's what I want, but I want it to happen naturally by exposure to certain places or having a conversation, or I don't know. Like, it's just weird to me to just trying to make friends. Like, and I think it's always been that way. It's not just like, man, making friends as an adult is weird. Like, I talk to people on Instagram that are artists in Alberta, and that's fun and cool, but I don't have those people in person to like meet up with and talk to and whatever, hang out and have those in-person real-time conversations and that friendship that I do desire. But it's like, how much effort am I putting in? It's like, well, I don't want it to come out of effort that's like uncomfortable for me, because not because it requires effort, but because it's not, there's too much of a gamble. I know myself well enough that I don't like the majority, like the vast majority of people that I meet, I would not want to spend more time with than I have to. That's just what that is. And I think that the closer I get to people, and this kind of relates to ASD stuff, the closer that I get to people, the more I want to unmask, and the more challenging that is, because I am a complex person with what I feel are not complex needs, but to everyone else, I think they are complex needs. For an example, and I don't want to get too far into this, but I'm only doing this for the purpose of this discussion and not trying to go off the rails into another discussion. But for me, one of those things that I need is, let's say, say what you mean and mean what you say. Like, that's a really core tenet that I like to hang my hat on. That I want, that is a pillar, that is something that is a strong value of mine that I aspire to exercise and apply to my life daily in my own actions. It's not really reciprocated by the vast majority of people. Something that simple. And a lot of people can say they have that value, but they don't exercise it to the degree in which I would say, yeah, you do have that value. You're right, because you were exercising it with strength and with purpose, with consistency. Do you, like, you know, if you're going to say something, do it. You know, like, show that you have that value with your actions. Again, like, say what you mean and mean what you say. That's really simple. I don't think that's a complex need or like that makes me really complicated, but it's really challenging because a lot of people just don't do that. And the closer I get to somebody, the more I'm going to have to rely on them. And by relying on people, that's where it gets tricky, because like, I don't, like, that's where my standards are very rigid. Where I'm like, okay, if I can trust you, then I want to be able to trust you. And I can't trust anyone to the degree that I'd like to, because we're all fallible and we're all human. And we all, again, if we get into solipsism, I don't believe in unconditional love, which to me is related to altruism. And I believe the only way to show altruism is through suicide. So, which is, again, a whole other topic. So, I just believe at some point as a human, you are going to exercise action in your own self-interest at the cost of somebody else. It's going to happen. And that's just human nature. And I think that is for almost everybody. And I say almost because there are people who just don't have the same cognitive ability or function. They react to stimuli more than they have a lot of conscious thought and intention and purpose with their actions. So I don't think that they're necessarily making those choices that I believe a lot of, you know, human nature, or that is instilled within us to exercise. But I would say the vast majority of people have that in their nature and exercise that from time to time, and we can do our best to not exercise that because we want to be kind humans, but believe that it happens, because innately we are incredibly complex. So it's hard to trust people. That's where I was going. And for me, it's even more challenging because some of these needs that I would have in wanting to spend time with certain people and pursue certain friendships and relationships is rooted in some of those core values of mine. Know thyself, you know, lifelong learning, you know, say what you mean and mean what you say, that type of stuff. And if someone can't reciprocate, you know, truly, then wow, that's bananas. Sorry, I just was going too fast in town by a lot, and I didn't notice the officer there. But apparently, this is off the rails, but this is one of those things that also relates to ASD stuff and justice, complex, and whatever. Is like, I'm going 40 kilometers over the speed limit in town, which I shouldn't have been. I'm like going right through. It's like the highway, whatever. I'm not too concerned about it. But 40 kilometers is a pretty, I would say I should have gotten a ticket for that. I should have gotten pulled over. And I didn't. And I'm glad that I didn't. But at the same time, I'm like frustrated and disappointed that I didn't. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, people, putting effort into meeting people. So one thing is just that it's really, I know myself and what my needs are, and compatibility and chemistry with people is very difficult for me to find, and relating with people and having common ground and similar values are just very hard, because a lot of people say they have similar values, they don't exercise those values. I can't rely on those people to communicate effectively, which is a whole other thing that's not even in those values that I mentioned. But like, it's just care and respect for my time. Man, this conversation is the longest conversation ever, and it's just like, it's big. It's big. Because I have to address all these other topics to talk about what makes a place feel like home, which I'm wrapping up. So the other thing is that putting effort into making friends is a gamble, that's a risk, and I also don't know how to end that. I think that's a social thing that I don't know how to navigate, because if it were a romantic relationship and you go out on some dates, or maybe you're together for a couple months or whatever the time is that you recognize the relationship isn't serving you anymore and you have to make an exit, that's way easier for me to do with a romantic relationship versus a friendship. How do you start to cultivate a friendship and then say, you know what, this friendship isn't serving me anymore, I don't wish to remain friends at this time? Like, that's just like, how do you do that? I don't know. It's like, how do you do it? You just say those words, there you go, done. But I don't have a lot of practice in doing that, and that's a gamble. That's a scary one for me to take, because I'm like, I don't want to be in a situation where I have to like tell someone that, oh yeah, I actually don't want to hang out anymore, and I don't want to ghost people, because it goes against my values to not communicate. But that's why it's like, well, then I don't even start this thing, because I don't know how to communicate this thing, because I really value communication a lot and honesty in that aspect, instead of what people might call being nice or being polite, by telling you untruths, because they don't want, in honesty, they don't want to do the work and the hard conversation part. So they're doing something, they're telling you something so that they don't have to actually tell you the truth, and they're saying that it's to benefit you. They're telling themselves that it's a white lie to be polite or to be nice, when in reality they just don't want to deal with the consequences of that challenging conversation. And I don't want to have that challenging conversation with trying to meet a new friend and realizing, like, you know what, I don't want to spend my time with you anymore, because I've realized the more that I got to know you that this isn't compatible and it's not healthy for me. That's really challenging for me to say, so it's really difficult to go into that. And that's why when I talk about like natural friendships, okay, if I have coworkers and I spend a lot of time with them, I get to know them a little bit, then I can say, you know what, I think this person has similar values, we've had conversations, and I want to take that outside of the workplace now. So, or, you know, conversations with people at businesses or environments, communities that you frequent, could lead to that as well. So wrapping this up, I think I've come to the conclusion of, for me, what makes a place feel like home. Wait 1 second. This will be really quick. I don't need to tell you that. But also having a purpose and having intention and purpose and work within your community. I don't have that. I am still not working. I am still looking for work. I'm struggling with looking for work, but I don't have the purpose in my community. I have my own purpose in my own home, in my household, with my family, and a lot of the work that I do is surrounded around that. And for myself to be healthy, mentally, physically, emotionally. But part of that is that I need a role outside of the home. I need a role outside of myself, but also outside of my own family. And I don't have that, because work can provide that, but it has to be meaningful work as well. And finding meaningful work, even menial work right now, is challenging. So that is a whole other part, is that having work would help with feeling like there's a place that I call home. Now, work could be volunteering. It doesn't have to be monetary in compensation, but it's just that there's also just a lot of work that I'm doing at home, which I know the priorities of, so it prevents me from putting a lot of investment and time into these other things that are also scarier, that I feel like I want to be more stable before I can add that onto my plate. But Anyway, then it's a chicken or the egg thing of like, oh, if I start doing that, then that'll actually help me and create more stability. Anyway, things that I feel like I need in order to feel like a place is at home. I need a relationship with my environment. I need a relationship with my city. How do I do that? Part of me does that through exploration. So it used to be through graffiti, having an intimate knowledge of my geography in the city and how to get from A to B and all these intricate places and cool places that other people may not know. Me having a relationship with my city in the way that you would have a relationship with a person and knowing things about them that other people don't know by having regular purposeful interactions with your city, not just traversing your city to go from A to B, but to do things within the city with intention and purpose. Or I should say your environment, a relationship with your environment, whether it's town, city, rural environment, whatever. And so mountain biking helps me with that. Walking actually a lot would help me with that. Being a regular in community spaces, small local independent businesses would help with that. But with that come, like, I would need time and I would need money to do those things as well. And so these are all these things that I'm missing, but these are the things that I'm noticing. That's having a relationship with my city is part of what would make me feel as though that city is home. And those are ways that I would have a relationship with my city. And getting to know people within the city. And some of those things I mentioned, like, you could do that, you could find that through engaging in those activities, whether it be, like, again, I've been going to the gym 5 to 6 days a week consistently for months and seeing the same faces at the same times and still not having any conversations with any of those people. I'm there to work. I'm there to do stuff for me. To me, it's not a social event. But if there was a natural way to have those conversations, then, or if it happened, like, whatever, there's an opportunity there, but it's also, again, I've kind of already expressed my intricacies and complexities with making that happen. Work is the other one. And having purposeful, consistent engagement that is fulfilling. I think those are really the basics and the building blocks for me feeling though I would be at home in the place that I live. And so in saying that, I think I really need to work harder at creating that. And when one door shuts, with opportunity for that, I should explore somewhere else. Because even with the arts community, I've been finding it very difficult to actually engage within the arts community in Calgary. Because there are some of those people that, like I mentioned, aren't... the say what you mean and mean what you say stuff isn't there. The lie of community is present a lot within some of the folks in the arts community there. The positivity is false. The desire to connect with other artists isn't really there. There are very cliquey, insular communities like you would find anywhere, but some of those people are advertising as though they're not that way when they are in action doing those things. So I think that's it. I think that's what I just need to focus on those things. And talking about this helps me. And maybe this brings the question to your door. How do you feel at home in your space? And I think one of those things, I don't want to not acknowledge this, is like how can you be good company for anyone else if you're not good company for yourself, right? And I think that I'm pretty good company for myself the majority of the time, so that's not where I would focus my efforts right now. But I feel like I do need to focus on how do I actually put in the work to getting out there, because I don't have a natural way right now through work and coworkers, or I don't have anything set up as like a regular thing that I'm doing, and I need to put in the work to to seek that out and find that.